I now call the member for Lalor.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak about the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement. And I rise as a proud member of the Labor Party and a proud Labor representative in this place. And I'm proud because, of course, it was the Labor Party that first embraced a relationship with China. Gough Whitlam led this country to step into spaces that we previously had not gone. It's something that has set this country up for the prosperity that we've seen across the last 40 years. And of course, it didn't stop there. When it comes to free trade agreements, when it comes to free trade, the Labor Party has a proud history, a very proud history. And so it is with some concern that I am reading the papers and I am talking to people about this China-Australia Free Trade Agreement and the way it is being understood in the community. I would say from the outset that everybody on this side of the chamber understands the importance of free trade, the importance of the Chinese markets for the future prosperity of this country. However, it is not the responsibility of those of us on this side who, with an eye to fairness as well as future prosperity, want to take a good hard look at this agreement and ensure that it delivers for all Australians. So yes, we do have issues with the trade agreement as it stands without enabling legislation that would ensure and safeguard Australian jobs, that will put safeguards in place to protect visiting workers, that will ensure that this trade agreement delivers for all Australians. And it is an interesting space when we sit question time to question time with those opposite accusing Labor and accusing the Labor movement of running a scare campaign. And I would suggest that those opposite look closely and look much more closely at themselves and at their record in government in 2 years as to why the Australian public have a trust issue with this government. They established themselves as a government with that very first 2014 budget as a government that didn't have an eye on fairness, and a government that seemed to lack an understanding, whose priorities were clear. It was very clear in that budget that their priorities were not about ensuring fairness for everyone. And of course, we're also caught in a space in time where the narrative, the rhetoric, has been about lifters and leaners. It's been about punishing people. It's been about suggesting people get a better job if they can't afford to buy a house. We've had a treasurer tell us that poor people don't drive cars. These are the reasons why the Australian public are looking warily at the trade agreements being entered into this government, and they're doing so with good cause, because this agreement does, as it stands, have issues. Now, Labor are prepared to work with the government to find the solutions here, and we think we've found ways that will simply and easily mean that we can embrace the positives from the China Free Trade Agreement while safeguarding Australian jobs. Now, there is no doubt that the investment facilitation arrangements and the movement of natural persons, that both these mechanisms erode the role of one of the key safeguards in the 457 visa system, which is labour market testing. This needs to be ensured. The safeguards that we are suggesting will be complementary to Chafta, and I would encourage this government to embrace this opportunity to deliver on free trade and deliver safeguards to Australian workers. What we are suggesting is entirely consistent with Chafta and will not require renegotiation of the agreement. It can be done through legislation. This means that Chafta can enter into force at the earliest opportunity, which of course will fast-track the positives that may come from the free trade agreement. In short, Labor will support Chafta and Australia's economic engagement with China while making improvements to support local jobs, maintain workplace skills and safety standards, and deter exploitation of overseas workers. It is imperative that the Australian public have confidence going into this trade agreement. It is imperative that the government embrace Labor's suggestions, come to the table and rebuild some trust with the Australian public.
I thank the